Bill Henshaw here again, your friendly local constitutional cook from the San Francisco Peninsula, and a very important subject matter for everybody, really, but especially with you parents with children and in elementary school. We all know what the problems are today. The education system is so bad that a lot of uh, junior high schools are complaining the kids hardly even have third or fourth grade reading skills, for crying out loud. And a big reason for this is that they've simply gotten away from the 3 R's that we had when I was in school: reading, writing, arithmetic. None of this civil rights, transgender crap, or whatever else goes on there, which is entirely inappropriate, especially for grades 1 to 6. And I would argue 7 to 9 too. But when you understand the true agenda, and this is what they don't want you to know, what they're doing with the civil rights and transgender and LGBTQ, etc., is invoking federal, regional, martial law rule. That's been the order of the day in this country for close to 100 years, and maybe more. That's all civil rights is when you learn about it. And it was based on the War Acts of Congress beginning in at least the 39th Congress with the Reconstruction Act of 1867. What needs to happen here is we need to get qualified educators in there. That would help. And that's been a bit of a problem because some of the qualified ones, are these days too scared or frightened even to teach, given that the students, weren't exactly like I was all those years ago. We were in school, we didn't have anything remotely resembling attacks on teachers or anything like that. We had good, solid teaching. And I remember all of my elementary school teachers too. And that's what we want to get back to. And that does a lot of things at one and the same time. One, it reinforces the position the kids should be getting from the parents, that your life has value and it's important. And we want to raise you so you make the best of it. Number two is that you need to learn, the true history of the United States more than anything else. And they're not teaching it now. They weren't teaching it when I was in school 65 odd years ago, right outside of Washington, D.C. Ain't weren't teaching it. Boy, imagine if I had learned all this at that age, where I'd be now. It's not there, and it needs to be in schools. We need better textbooks and better teachers that understand it, and especially about civil rights, and all this crap. And when one understands that all comes from the 14th Amendment, and I'm going to be doing a series of videos on the history of the United States. I'll talk more about that in an upcoming video. But you realize not only does the 14th Amendment not exist, it never did. Contemporaneously ruled unconstitutional by the U.S. Supreme Court. Cases Ex parte McArdle, 7th Law 506, I believe is the citation on that. The current justices know it as well as I do. And that's where our big break comes in, because they're doing everything they can. And John Roberts said, "Oh, I wish you would just do it faster." I know it hasn't been easy, and this is your fourth term into the all-out assault on the administrative state. But you need to do it and do it faster, especially to protect the rights of parents. And most particularly when they get children that are transitioning in school to another gender or a transgender or whatever have you, with the full cooperation of the school and not necessarily any knowledge of the parent. That raises the obvious question: who the hell's children are these and why? And that goes right back to the marriage license and your social insecurity number and a lot of other agreements that you appear to have with government, that lets them take lock, stock, and barrel control of the entire family. Exactly the opposite of the original intent of those racist framers. For a legitimate government in a defined Republican form of government of defined and limited powers, the exact opposite of the elective despotism we have today. Video for the future too, you'll be seeing about elections. There aren't any. Love this one. But for now, we keep it to the PTA and the schools and putting pressure on here to get back to the basics so that kids get an education, most importantly for themselves. But then think of it this way too: they're going to be members of future jury pools if and when the time comes. If they don't have a clue what their rights, duties, and powers are, how can there possibly be any jury trials at common law? And that's been the mainstay of English common law since Magna Carta in 1215. The jury has the power to rule on the facts and the law. Not today in a de facto national socialist system that thinks that we're all quote unquote incompetent. And that's how they get by with it. But it's the exact reverse of what the framers did. You'll learn more about that later. We were confident, and under that system of law, we made the most progress in the history of the world in 125 years. Wasn't a perfect government, no one's saying that. Only the best one that's ever been created. We want it back. And every one of you should want it back across the board. A lot of you won't be members of the sovereign body politic and be quote unquote qualified electors. Doesn't matter. You will have enforceable rights. And that's the important point to remember here. Their lives are worth something, and the government has to respect that in everything they do. Wouldn't it be nice if we get back to that again? And I've gotten a bit off track here. Granted, I have. But it all starts in schools, and especially with young school children. And that's where the changes have to start. And with future generations making changes, after what I hope happens in the U.S. Supreme Court with making a lot of changes, and they're in the process of doing that now. And you put those two things together, we're going to put these corporate creatures out of business. We have full power to do that. You'll learn about that in another video too. But that said, oh goodness, please send me an email, youwinnincourt@gmail.com. I should have said that earlier, for more information about what I do. And tell your friends, subscribe, like the videos, get the word out. The sooner we do that, the quicker we get a whole hell of a lot better, and we get our nation and republic back. Thank you.